Welcome to another edition of The Insiders. Tim Fitzgerald, Brian Hanley, the former Kansas State offensive lineman, Tim Everson from the Manhattan Mercury, and Glenn Kinley, who covers Big 12 sports for every station except one in Topeka.
That's right.
Except the one I work for. You don't work for.
We won't talk about it.
We're not going to get into that. Gentlemen, Kansas State wins 44-31. It was an interesting game, and I got to start since I got the offensive lineman in the room with me. Brian, they decided to go old school and shove the ball down their throats, running for, 281 on the night.
Hey, they watched the Insiders last week.
They
Brian
did.
told them to do that.
Exactly. We'll get into DJ Giddens, but, man, it was impressive what they did.
I mean, this is the offensive line that we thought we were going to see at the very beginning of the season. And it's just what we said. Just run the ball downhill. Just run the ball at them, man. Don't try to get fancy, go side to side. Our advantage is running downhill in between the tackles. I mean, and there were running lanes a lot of times where guys weren't being touched. Like DJ wasn't being touched maybe 4, 5, 6 yards down the field. I mean, there were holes everywhere. And it just the offensive line, I can't say, look, I've been on them the last 3 weeks. I have been on them, but they deserved it. And they deserve all the praise after Saturday. Those guys just went to town on UCF. Just went to town.
And Tim, I didn't think Will Howard was going to be able to play. Guy couldn't walk after the Missouri game. He was totally beaten and battered and bruised up and swollen. And yet he got out there and ended up, honestly, he didn't look like he was affected one bit when in warmups he was kind of gimping around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they gave him, but he looked good. He looked real good. I mean, he was aside from one pass that he tried to sneak in a spot that he probably shouldn't have, as Keegan Johnson got beat to a ball.
Yep.
Aside from that, he was more of a game manager type deal. He wasn't doing anything super flashy, although it was a career high in completions, which I thought was interesting. And he looked good. And then whenever he had to kind of be a little bit more mobile once they got into the second half, Chris Kleiman said, hey, if we want to win this game, we need you to move around a little bit, because they were finally saying, let's stop the 230-pound monster that's running over us over and over again. Yeah, I mean, they Will kind of picked up the mantle and he had a couple nice runs and then ripped off an inexplicable 30-yard touchdown run to close out the game. But hey, he seemed fine.
And Glenn, DJ Giddens goes for 207 on 30 carries. A man's effort for a kid from Junction City High School. It's been pretty amazing. You probably covered him a little bit in high school to see his progression.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping I was going to be the one to talk about DJ Giddens, man. He was not good on Saturday. I mean, he was absolutely fantastic. He ran for over 200 yards. He finished with 293 total, because he had 8 catches for 86 yards. I mean, going into the game, we knew that he could run downhill. We knew that he could kind of get behind his pads. It seemed like with DJ Giddens, he's a guy who gets 2 or 3 more yards each play than you think he's going to, or than you think he should. If it looks like he's going to get stopped at 5, he gets 8. If it looks like he's going to get 6, he gets 7. He gets more, but I don't know that we knew that he could be such a weapon out of the receiving game. I don't know if it was that UCF didn't prep for the guy or what. But I don't even want to say that, because I feel like then if I say that, it's almost taken away from him. He is just really, really good. And he runs, I think the way to put it, he runs angry. And it's just like, get out of the way or get run over. And he was really good. And I made the joke to some friends, but I think that he probably scored more touchdowns than he said words out loud during that game, because he doesn't talk. And I actually, although it's maybe for media, you wish that he would, have a great soundbite. I actually think it's awesome. Like, it's like mysterious, and it's like, I imagine like defenses are like, this guy just put up 300 total yards on us, and he didn't even say anything.
He didn't say a thing. Let's hear from Chris Kleiman real quick, guys, about the job DJ Giddens did and Will Howard coming back from that injury to play every snap, which I don't think any of us imagined he would play every snap. We thought we'd probably see someone else at some point, but we didn't. Here's Coach Kleiman.
We challenged DJ. We said we were going to give you the football. You needed to step up. You have all the ability in the world. We've got to believe in you, and we're going to keep giving it to you and keep giving it to you. And then we didn't know if Will would play, and he was not 100% by any means. But in the second half, I told him, you have to run the football for us to secure this win. You absolutely have to, because they're starting to key in on things, and they weren't rushing him late. They just started batting balls down. Great job by them. So then Will had to become a runner, and challenged him a couple times on the sideline, and he responded. And we're 1-0 in league play.
Brian, DJ Giddens was so good because he would get through the line, and the line was giving him holes to get through. And then he felt space. He just would, he'd have guys in front of him, and all of a sudden he'd go off on, pop it outside. And he just did a great job sifting through that defense. Does he have breakaway speed? No. But was he really, really effective? Heck yes. It was impressive to watch him.
Well, it was elusive, maybe the word, because and I think it's the maturation of him being a running back, because he couldn't do that last year. He would just kind of run through the line, and if somebody came, he would try to run through them, and if he did, he did. But, get tackled, whatever. But he didn't do that. He was running, cutting inside. It was almost like he could see things happening. And look, I've been there as a player. When things start to slow down for you, man, it's crazy. It's like, oh, yeah, I see this happening. While you're moving full speed, everything just happens so slow. I can cut this way and get more yards. Oh, somebody else is coming. I can cut the other way and get more yards. It is a great thing to see. It was incredible. And to your point, Glenn, as far as receiver, look, he ran a dig route about 9 yards down the field, jumped in the air, and had to reach back and catch a football. That's what – now, look, I'm not trying to say he's an NFL receiver, but that's what NFL receivers do.
Yeah.
That's the kind of catches that they have to make. And for a running back to be able to do that at the collegiate level just goes to show that either this guy was in the complete zone or he's got this in his repertoire. And I think he's got it in his repertoire.
Yeah, we definitely learned a lot about him this week, because I think before maybe we thought this is a guy who can run up the middle and get you 4 yards of play, right? Which is good. Like, you want that guy, but we learned that he can do so much more than that. He's a lot more versatile than we probably realized. And obviously people watching this probably know, but Trayshawn Ward was out. So that's why DJ got the ball so often, and he rose to the occasion. I mean, you want to talk about a guy just stepping up. Yeah. It's like Kleiman said, hey, we need you. And he said, done.
As Brian said, Tim, we saw him run the ball last year, but we didn't see this kind of shiftiness. He said he studied a Deuce Vaughn move and used it in the game. His progression is amazing between freshman and sophomore year. Folks, he's a sophomore. They brought in Trayshawn Ward to help him. He will. There'll be games where Trayshawn is going to be really valuable, but this game belonged to DJ Giddens, and the quiet kid from Junction City did an awful lot. He was the target. He was targeted 10 times, ran it 30 times. They ran 82 plays, and he was the focus of 40 of those plays. Tim, that's big time.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's not something really that K-State thought that they would have after having someone fill that role of, hey, we're, half of our touches and carries are going to go to, Deuce Vaughn. It is kind of interesting to see when they were confronted with a situation where they needed to do that again. It worked out incredibly well. What that means for the whole tandem, I don't know. I mean, I would imagine that there are going to be better run defenses than UCF had, although I don't think that UCF was necessarily bad either coming in. I think that they were around like 50 or so in total rushing yards in the nation. So not awful, but it was impressive to watch, and it really is just kind of scratching the surface for DJ as far as what he's going to be able to do.
Brian, we don't get yards after contact. They don't list that on our stats, but it had to be significant because he bounced off a lot of tacklers. UCF seemed to be lined up right, doing the right things, and then they couldn't tackle. They're just not a good tackling team, and K-State must have seen that on film and said, we're just going to cash this in.
Yep, they just kept running the football, and that's what you do. I mean, I know that's an old cliche, is we're just going to wear them down. Well, technically, I guess maybe that happened, but, I mean, this wasn't fourth quarter runs that we saw all this stuff happening. It was first quarter runs that we saw this happening. He was just running through, bouncing off guys, didn't run out of bounds, which you know me, Fitz. I love when a running back does not run out of bounds and just kept fighting for extra yards. And I'm like, you know what? This guy gets it. He gets it. And he is. And I think it's time that we just have to say that he's good. He's just that good. Now, granted, it's one game, so I don't want to go off the deep end, but that was a really, really good game.
Yeah, it was impressive. But UCF did score 31 points, Mr. Kenley. And I asked Chris Kleiman about giving up some deep passes. He got a little surly with me in the post game, talking about their great athletes, which they had certainly. But this is the second week in a row where we've seen K-State's pass defense have some issues with guys getting deep on them and just the overall speed giving them trouble.
Yeah, and it was just defensive breakdowns on a few of them, including the flea flicker is probably the one that pops out the most, right? But it's hard to say how much of this was okay. With Missouri, it was almost can they keep up with Luther Burden, right? In this one, it never felt like that. Like again, they did have athletes, but it never felt like that guy was just better. It felt like at times, and I don't know, we talked about it last week. I don't know if it was confusion or panic or what it was, but it felt like at times they just fooled them. And they just did. And that's probably the concern. Now, if for me personally, I'm open to hear what y'all think, but I would rather have that. That can get fixed. If you don't have the speed or the athletes, you can't really fix that. You can fix some confusion. Right. Hopefully they can clean that up. But again, what is this, the second or third week in a row that we've saw Troy, it didn't affect them, but we saw it a little bit.
Yep.
Missouri, it did hurt them. And this one, it almost hurt them. But, luckily UCF made a lot of mistakes too.
Yeah, you just summed up why my athletic career never went anywhere. The overall lack of speed and athleticism kind of did me in.
It happens to the best of us.
I know. Well, even the worst of us. Yeah. Tim, this was a really positive sign, though. I saw the defense do some things. They gave up the one signature run again. They've done it 3 games in a row where they let one run pop off. But other than that, they did a pretty good job physically up front. And if they continue to take away the run from teams, this is going to be a tough defense, even if there is some yardage given up through the air.
And this was a UCF team that was running it on everybody with great success. I mean, they were second best behind Air Force, which is, that's all they do is run. And it seemed like after that first drive that it was like, okay, this is going to be the same problem. But once they tightened up, they started to pass more, which ended up hurting the defense a little bit, but they looked really good and they started to get a lot more pressure on sophomore Timmy McClain, and that caused a lot of problems for him. But overall, the run defense wise was very positive.
Brian, Jim in our chat wants to know, they're shuffling a lot of guys in on defense, rotating a lot of guys through, which I think is just a Joe Klanderman trait. But I guess he wants to know, is it kind of causing them trouble because they've got so many new faces when they're getting into that rotation?
On defensive backs, it can cause problems. Now, if we're talking about defensive linemen, then no, because you have to rotate defensive linemen. It's just, you can't play the whole game. Defensive backfield, yeah. You're running in and out, especially if you're not getting the call right. And sometimes it's a matter of, I played with this guy a lot. I know what he's going to do in this certain situation, regardless of the call. If a guy's running this route, I know where he's going to be, and I can be here, vice versa. So, yes, that can be an issue. Again, it's kind of like the offensive line. At some point, you got to settle on some guys and say, these are the guys that are going to be out there. Because, again, secondary is not a position where you're just running guys in and out. That's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Well, it wasn't all beautiful for K-State. I was a little dismayed at the special teams play. They had a great punt, 69-yarder, beautiful, but they missed a field goal that was short, missed an extra point. They gave up a return. They just didn't look as efficient. And we asked Coach Kleiman about it in postgame, and this is what he said.
Well, we can't miss the PAT, period. We can't do that. Jack Bloomer had a bomb of a punt, which is a big, big positive. We took some starters off kickoff. They've got 2 electric, great players back there, so let's give them credit as well. something that we have to shore up. We had 2 penalties that we can't have on special teams that took some field position away. But we're playing some young guys, and we're going to keep working them.
Brian, K-State not playing special teams well. Got me right here, man.
It's four.
Yeah, it's hard to watch. It was painful to watch.
Yeah. I mean, there was even a play where Keegan and Phillip got into an argument over who was supposed to catch. I'm like, okay, guys, look. And I get it. Everybody's trying to make a play, and we haven't made one. And everybody's trying to make a play. But at some point, we got to get it fixed because, again, the special team, let's just call it what it is. It was bad. It was bad. I know Coach can't say that. He's not going to say that. He's got young guys out there, but that's not an excuse. It's never been an excuse at Kansas State. We've always had young guys on special teams because special teams is effort. Literally, that's all that it is effort. And, yeah, I get some guys have to have ability, but it's effort, just running down the field, covering, blocking. And guys just have to be better. We have to put a little bit more emphasis. I'm more worried about the kick game than I am anything else. I mean, you can't. I mean, he said the PAT, yeah, you missed it, but the field goal I thought was worse.
Yeah,
so we just can't miss those things, man.
Man, Tim Everson, they got to clean this up. They just this will be a point of intolerance for K-State fans because this has been kind of the secret sauce for so many years. People look at the stats and go, how did K-State win this game? Oh, there's a long return here. It's like hidden yardage that you can't account for. Oh, they blocked a punt too. That's how they won. And giving another team the opportunity to steal that from you, man, that just doesn't sit well.
Yeah, it's been the equalizer for 30 years now, and that's great to have that. I don't know. It's very interesting because obviously when Kleiman came in, there was not this level or K-State's level of emphasis on special teams at North Dakota State, but he seemed to be very, open to making it more of an emphasis and making that part of the culture, his part of the culture, and into his culture, and everything. But I know they've had some, analysts and stuff kind of cycle through on the back end there. I don't know if that, affects things as far as who's in charge and how that happens. But it's not because when they lose games, which they will lose games, whether, whatever it happens, if that is one of the things that is not being upheld, it is going to be a storm. I mean, people won't take it. People will not be cool about that.
Glenn, I will be at the front of that storm.
I know you will.
But look, they've got the dudes, but they just have to settle in. As Coach rightfully said, Austin Romaine has been on those special teams, and now he had to go play linebacker to replace Daniel Green, who's lost for the season. I get it. Jake Clifton has been on special teams last year, and he's been out with injury, played some. So I get that they were breaking in new guys, and then those guys had to move off of special teams to play. But when they about broke a kickoff run, I was like, this isn't right. This isn't good.
No, it feels like special teams, typically you maybe don't think much about it. If you're watching, it might be, okay, the kickoff return, like it's usually kind of a net neutral. With Kansas State, in the past, it's always felt like it's going to be at worst a net neutral. And on Saturday, it felt like it was going to be at best a net neutral for Kansas State, which is just unusual for Kansas State fans to deal with. I do agree. I think they have the guys, to do it. I mean, Phillip Brooks, correct me if I'm wrong, was Big 12 special teams, either player of the year or preseason player of the year or something like that. He's one of the best there is, but they got to get it figured out. I think it probably should help moving forward that they have a guy like Seth Porter, who's a veteran and who's a captain, who I think almost if you were splitting up the groups, you're going to send Will Howard with your offense, and you're going to, before he got hurt, at least you're going to send Daniel Green with your defense, and you're going to send Seth Porter with that special teams. I would think he's going to take a lot of responsibility this week. He's going to be a key piece in getting that cleaned up because he's a guy who's been there long enough to know that standard that we're talking about. And he's probably, I'm guessing, going to instill that in some of the younger guys. Hey, this is not okay.
Right. It's not. And they did get some guys back. We mentioned Will Howard played, but Christian Duffy came back. And Brian, I certainly want to ask you about his play. Big Duff came back. He played about half of the offensive snaps. I think he played a little bit more than they planned on. And they're heading into the off week now. And so they've got Duffy that now has 2 weeks of practice leading up to the Friday night. Well, not 2 weeks because they play on a Friday night. Don't start me on that. The Friday night game at Oklahoma State. They also have Jake Clifton, who surprised everyone by playing. He wasn't expected to come back until Oklahoma State. He played a number of snaps against UCF. He wasn't as fast as he has shown in the past. And they're just getting some bodies back, but it is kind of weird having this early off week. But let's hear what Coach Kleiman said about some of these guys.
It was huge to get Duff back, but now we get 2 weeks to practice with him so that he'll be full speed. We get 2 weeks to practice with Jake Clifton at full speed. We get 2 weeks to practice with Garrett Oakley, who played a handful of snaps at full speed. So I'm excited to get a few more bodies back there.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Garrett Oakley leading to that. That's a massive tight end. He's running around out there. I'm like, they've let a giant come onto the field. So he was a presence. But, Brian, give me your evaluation of that right tackle spot with Duffy out there.
I thought he did fine. I mean, there were some plays that he missed, but I think that was more either conditioning or timing type of stuff. But I thought he did fine. I thought he was opening up holes. He was drive blocking. Like I said, there were some plays that he missed, but you expect that coming back and being out for so long. That's the thing. I mean, it's not like he was out for a week or two or anything like that. He's been out for so long. So I thought he did well. I think this bye week is going to be huge because if I know coaches, like I think I know coaches, they're going to show him the tape. They're going to show him where he wasn't in shape, and they are going to work him to get into shape over the next 8 to 10 days. And I think against Oklahoma State, he'll be ready.
I don't think I could get in shape in 2 weeks, Tim. I think I need more time than that. I don't think.
Hey, you don't have the K-State coaching staff, though. They might be able to do it.
Yeah, Coach Drew would probably. I don't even want to think about it. I'm not going to sleep tonight thinking about it.
If you have you on the path for about 5 days and then you quit the team.
Yeah, Coach Drew just yelling at me. Starting with, get out of bed. Okay. Look, guys, this K-State team has an upside that we haven't even come close to seeing. And Tim, Coach Kleiman alluded to that when asked about his offense putting up 44 points and all those yards. He said we're not even close. And he mentioned the receivers. They're just not getting the kind of consistency out of the receiver core that you need to once you get into Big 12 play. It's an ongoing concern that they threw so much to the running back and a group of 3 tight ends. I think there was 20 targets out of those guys, the non-receivers. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they did lose RJ Garcia midway through the game, which is significant. Keegan Johnson, we're still not 100% sure, like where he is health-wise, what the deal is there. I mean, hopefully he starts to kind of look like himself. He's had a couple of little flashes of being that explosive kind of deep threat, but not anything super notable. And then aside from that, it's Jaden Jackson and Ben Sinnott, which, I mean, we knew about Ben Sinnott, and he's been what we thought he was going to be for the most part. But wide receiver wise, I wonder over this next week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever, how many of those younger guys, how many of the Trey Spivies and the JC Browns and stuff like that kind of matriculate up into kind of that level to, be a part of the offense. They need consistency there. If not huge numbers, consistency. And then they don't have that.
And Glenn, Will Howard threw another interception, but that was Keegan Johnson not competing for his space. I mean, he just let the corner or safety step in front of him and take the ball away. We saw it at Missouri where it looked like Trayshawn Ward didn't complete his route and kind of cut it off and was on a different page. Most of the interceptions haven't been Will Howard's fault, but they go on his stats. It's frustrating to watch.
Well, the week one as well, that he got hit as he threw, and you can make the case, well, he should have had the awareness, guys coming after him. But if the O-line holds up their block, that's probably one that he can take back as well. So, yeah, I don't know that the picks have been on him. It happens to me in Madden all the time. I'll throw, and then the defender on Madden will come back to the ball, and my guy just stands there and doesn't come back anyways.
That's coaching.
Maybe it is. It's user error. But, no, I think that that's something that maybe will come with time. The pro and the con, I guess, to K-State's receivers is they plan to get a lot of guys involved, and we've talked about that before. Maybe the con of that is that, if you have 6 or 7 or 8 guys that you're getting involved, how many times is Will Howard throwing to each of those guys in a live game each week? And if the answer is only 4 or 5, even for your best guys, he might – I know he practices with them every week, and Kleiman's talked about the importance of practicing at full speed for that reason, that if they don't go 100% full speed, then Will doesn't know where they're going to be at in a game. But it is different in a game, even if you are going full speed in practice. So I'll be interested to see down the stretch if he does zero in on a few guys where he says, I know RJ Garcia and Ben Sinnott and whoever else like the back of my hand, and I know where they're going to be at, so I'm going to go to them. Or if we keep getting a type of deal where we might have it might be a different guy each week, and that keeps the defenses on their toes. But then if he's throwing to Jaden Jackson 8 times this week instead of RJ Garcia, or if it's different every week, he also doesn't know that guy maybe as well.
Right. Whereas
we see it with Kelsey and Mahomes. I mean, Kelsey just goes out there and runs, and it's like without him saying anything, Patrick knows exactly where he's going, even if it's not the route he's supposed to run.
Yeah, it's exactly. He's got something like that going with Ben Sinnott, but defenses have caught up a little bit to that, and he needs those receivers to step up to keep those defenses honest. Final topic before we take our break is K-State lost last year to Tulane. The last non-conference game went to Oklahoma and won. This time they lose at Missouri on in a heartbreaking fashion. Let's be honest here. Tulane wasn't heartbreaking. They just kind of beat K-State. They just didn't let them get back into that game. But this one stung. It provided a lot of adversity for the team. Here's what Coach Kleiman said about the culture of this football program and bouncing back from those troubles.
Yeah, we strive on overcoming adversity, and we always talk about, average teams get destroyed by adversity, good teams survive it, great teams get better because of it, and that's what we want to be. A great team. We've got to continue to get better because of the adversity. And I haven't even looked at the injury report. Maybe we had somebody down, but you know what? So what now what? The next guy has to be able to step up and play like that kid did there in Austin Romaine.
Yeah, they bounced back. Austin Romaine, he kind of gave up the big run, but he got better as the game went on, as he saw more and more snaps. Glenn, this team does bounce back. It is resilient, and that's coaching, man. That is not coaching on emotion, coaching on preparation, and just demanding your leaders on your team lead. And K-State does that.
And the early bye week is maybe a little unusual depending on how you look at it, but it might be a benefit for K-State to have that bye week. There's never a good time to lose Daniel Green for the season, right? But to have that bye week right after that, you get the win without him 1 week, and then you got those 2 weeks specifically for a guy like Austin Romaine. You take those reps with the ones to get settled in, to get some quality coaching. That's valuable, and I think, the K-State coaches have instilled, this idea of just like zero panic in these guys, it seems like. And it seems like they have we talked about it last week. They had to find this balance, and I asked the guys about it last Tuesday in the press conference, this balance of like letting that Mizzou loss motivate you without like dwelling on it. Like, how do you let it fuel you without pouting about it and then just letting it cost you again? And that was Kleiman's big message, right? Was we could not let Mizzou beat us twice. And I think that's what he got away to the guys is, hey, that loss sucked. Now move on, or else we're going to have another loss that sucks.
And Brian, in some ways, this was an ideal game. You got tested, you got pushed, you were down in the third quarter, and you found a way to win. You found a way to take control of the game, and you didn't get beaten up and injured in this game. This was almost like a best case scenario in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a way to get confidence back. I'm not sure that the guy, like, they lacked confidence, but anytime you get beat, you start to question yourself somewhat in some way. So it was good that they went through the adversity and was able to find a way, because look, there's nothing that eats away at a team than not being able to deal with adversity. Right. You see it at every single level. Little adversity creeps in. You either have good leaders and they fight through it, or you have bad leaders and the team separates. I mean, it happens everywhere. You see it in the profession. You look at the Jets. I mean, little adversity, and they're ready to fall apart. They're literally ready to fall apart. So it's good that K-State has the kind of leadership that they do. And I believe the coaches allow for the players to do it. Now, I played under a coach. He did it. You know, I'm not saying there's a better way to do it or not, but Coach Snyder used to do that. Coach Kleiman allows his players to root and cipher through that stuff. I think it's a different mindset because it's a different type of player between then and now, just the mindset and mentality of guys. But the locker room at K-State is strong. So that's a good information, Glenn, that you said that, because that helps with adversity. It helps to be able to fight through that stuff, and that your team can do it without having to be told.
And Brian, I'm wondering if you could speak on this. Sorry, Fitz.
Sure.
Being a former player, how big is the timing of this when going to the bye week? You got 2 weeks to think about that last game. So if it was bad, you got 2 weeks of the fans ridiculing you. You got 2 weeks to dwell on the play that you missed, and you got 2 weeks to say, maybe what if we can't bounce back? But instead, Will Howard runs for 35 yards, and you're like, oh my gosh, these guys, and you go in there, they got to be feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, they do. And it's huge. Huge. Like I said, the confidence level, number one, to get that bad taste out of your mouth. I mean, to lose the way that they lost because they know they didn't play their best. That is what eats at the crawl, is that they know they didn't play their best and then they got beat. Okay, if they beat us and we did everything that we could, that's something different, okay? But so the bye comes at a perfect time. Not only do you get that bad taste out of your mouth, you also get to first of all, K-State needs to heal. That's another thing. I mean, everybody's going to be banged up. It seems like we got banged up early this season. So K-State gets to heal, got the bad taste out of their mouth. I know it's an early bye, but honestly, I think it's a good week for this to happen.
Tim Everson, last year, they go to Oklahoma. They come home 3-1. This year, they beat UCF to go to 3-1. Compare where these two teams are, if you can. How this team matches up to where K-State was after 4 games last year.
I think last year, the Oklahoma game, it was kind of they kind of found themselves a little bit there, even though I don't think it truly fully happened until the TCU game when Will Howard kind of took over. But in their minds, when they were going to be an Adrian Martinez led team, they kind of saw, okay, this is our road to success. This is how we need to play to win games. I don't know if this team is quite there yet. I don't think that UCF is quite on. Well, even though we found out Oklahoma was quite bad last year, but the perceived level of Oklahoma at the time, that was a much bigger confidence boost to go in there and kick their butt than it was to beat UCF this week. But I think that I agree that this bye week comes at a kind of a crucial time, not only for the healing aspect, but just to kind of shore up. So many things have been exposed that need to be fixed on both sides of the ball. And they're just kind of been gift wrapped a 2-week period to really hone in on those things and then get those knocked out. And I feel like they believe that they're going to be a much better football team coming out of this little break here. And I'm excited to see the changes that are made. I'm excited to see if there's any personnel shifts, especially receiver wise, maybe defensively. And I think that this is going to be, if they are going to be the team that maybe we thought they were, as far as competing for a Big 12 title, doing something else fun in the postseason, I think this 2-week stretch is going to be massive for them getting to that goal.
And it gives me 2 weeks to talk about DJ Giddens. So
And
I will do that for these whole 2 weeks. I will do that.
That's good. We're running a little heavy on the first segment, and when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about K-State's remaining schedule. 8 weeks in a row after this off week. It's going to be a grind for the Wildcats. It starts 2 Friday nights from now at Oklahoma State. We'll get into the Big 12, which kind of overlaps with the schedule. And my word for the Big 12 this year is stinky. And we'll also take a look around some college football topics. You're watching The Insiders from GoPowerCat.com. If you're listening, we'll be right back with this after this little break. But if you're watching, this break lasts 4 seconds. You can make it. I promise you can make it. We're back on The Insiders. Tim Fitzgerald, Brian Hanley, Glenn Kinley, and Tim Everson, your regular crew. A primetime episode. We did this because I had a medical appointment today in Kansas City that on Friday got canceled. So that's good. I got to go get my blood work done tomorrow before a press conference, but I'll be fine. Apparently, they're not too worried about me. Guys, K-State goes next to Oklahoma State. Let me pull this up here. Then they go to Texas Tech, which lost at West Virginia, which honestly I didn't see coming. Then they come home to play TCU on October 21st, so almost a full month before they have another home game. Then they get Houston, and then they go to Texas. Okay, now we're talking. Then they come home, play Baylor, and then they go to Kansas. Tough opponent.
Yeah.
And then they wrap up with Iowa State. Guys, a lot of these teams are bad. I mean, there's just no polite way. Brian, this conference absolutely stinks this year. Oklahoma State is as bad as Kansas ever was, and maybe worse. They look like the locker room's already gone and lost.
Yeah.
Iowa State beat Oklahoma State, and that only proved that they're less bad than Oklahoma State. Houston's bad. Tech might be bad. Some of us picked Tech to be in the Big 12 championship. We're not going to point any fingers. Houston's bad. Cincinnati's not on K-State's schedule. They're kind of bad. We don't know about TCU. Baylor seems bad. I look at this, and K-State should theoretically win every game, and Texas and Kansas are the two ones that are kind of up in the air. Am I crazy?
No, you are not crazy at all.
Well, you are crazy, but not for that reason.
Not for this.
Yeah, there we go. There you go. That's a better statement. But yeah, the Big 12's awful. Let's just call it what it is. Look, I have no idea what's going on with Tech. I thought Tech would be much better. I thought West Virginia would stink. And by all intents and purposes, I don't think West Virginia is really that good, but here they are. And then they beat Tech. And I'm just like, gee, many Christmas, what is going on? And Oklahoma State, you could see the handwriting on the wall. Who in the world has heard of playing three quarterbacks in a competitive football game when one of them, those quarterbacks, is awful and he happens to be your son? I mean, what are you doing? I mean, it's almost like Gundy's just cashing in the season because, like I said, I've been watching football my whole life. I've never seen where a team plays three quarterbacks in a competitive game. Now, in a blowout, that's something different. They didn't do that. And I'm just like, oh, my goodness, they're awful. Look, K-State's got an opportunity here. They really do. Now, you got to go play the games, and anything can happen. It's college football, and the guys are kids, so anything can happen. So you still got to go play the games. But they have a real opportunity here to do something that, number one, a lot of people thought they were going to be able to do anyway. But number two, to kind of separate themselves from the stinky poo of the rest of the conference. So right. This is K-State's opportunity.
That's a technical football term for those who are watching. We try not to get into that technical term. Who is one of them? Hey, Tim, at Oklahoma State, at Tech, TCU and Houston and Manhattan leading up to Texas, is it an utter failure of this team if it's not 7-1 going to Texas?
Unless we see something totally different from those teams between now and then. From what they've shown, I don't see how those all aren't wins. I really don't. I mean, I think that Texas Tech, I would say, could pull something out if they didn't, lose their quarterback for the rest of the season. Oklahoma State is, I don't know, man. That's a whole barrel of monkeys that gets more and more complicated as you go further and further down. And Gundy thought that he was going to have an easier time of things after T-Boone died, but no, it's hot down there.
He needs T-Boone for the NIL. He's refusing to play that game, and he's losing his locker room over it. Okay, Glenn, I'm going to give you a question specifically for your knowledge base because you covered Kansas and BYU on Saturday. I keep telling K-Staters this KU team's good. I mean, they're better than last year. They're more complete. I love Jalen Daniels at quarterback. I seriously think KU could be in the running for top 3, 4, 5 in this conference, and that includes giving K-State a real challenge in Lawrence when they meet.
And that game is in Lawrence, by the way. And I think that's going to be a good football game. KU is better than last year. Their defense has gotten better. We're talking about a team that was worse in the Big 12 from defense. that defense just scored 14 points against BYU and had 3 turnovers, and 2 of them were turnovers that turned into touchdowns. Their defense has gotten better, and Jalen Daniels, the more that he was beat up kind of in fall camp, the more that he gets healthy, the more mobile he's going to be. We talked about it with Kansas State basketball with Marquise Noel. I think if you would have asked Marquise Noel, like when Tang got hired, he would have been like, yeah, we're going to win the national championship. Like, why would you think we wouldn't? I think Jalen Daniels has that same like level belief of like he thinks he's the best quarterback in the world. And whether or not he is, if he believes it, that goes a long way. They have the belief, and that's probably a testament to what Lance Leipold has done with them and just the program buy-in and stuff like that. And Leipold talked about it today in his press conference. They had the big win against Texas in 2021. He's tired of talking about that, partially probably because Texas beat him really badly in Lawrence last year. So they already got their revenge. We're probably going to maybe see – I'm not even saying what the outcome of the game will be. We might see some flaws exposed for KU this week and maybe learn a little bit more about them. But that being said, if they go to Austin and lose, that doesn't mean that they aren't still going to give K-State a tough game, because a lot of teams are going to go to Austin and lose this year. Kansas has a lot of playmakers, and Jalen Daniels is a lot of teams have tried to stop him, and not many teams have stopped him.
They got a huge test at Texas, but then they've got UCF coming in, Brian. And I think that's going to be a great measurement for K-State to understand where Kansas is at. Maybe Plumlee comes back at quarterback. I'm not sure what his schedule is for the Knights, but I'm intrigued by KU. And I think he's doing a great job. Lance Leipold's doing an incredible job there. But this is a series Kansas State's owned. And that thing just kind of lingers out there in game 11, just waiting out there on the horizon. It's going to be packed. It's going to be fun. This season's going to be fun to watch unfold.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Kansas, and a lot of people aren't talking about it because of Jalen Daniels, is that they replaced their front 4, and all those guys can play football. Yeah. So they have a good, they're just better on defense. It's kind of what Glenn said. They're just better on defense, man. So that was their Achilles heel last year. They could score 40 points, but they were going to give up 45. I mean, there was no ifs, ands, or buts. They were giving up 45. So that's not the case this year. Nope. That's just not the case this year. So you're going to have to play Kansas to beat them, because they're not beating themselves. You know, they're a well-coached football team. I'm interested in the game this week. I really am. I think Kansas is going to give Texas – now, they always play them tough, minus last year. That was different. But I think they're going to give them everything they want. I really think they're going to give them everything that Texas wants. So that game at the end of the year, the second to last game that K-State plays, I think it's going to be – it'll also be different because Kansas is going to be good. And usually K-State gets in about half of the crowd, if not more. Right. They're not getting in half at this game. Nope. That's not happening this time.
We talked about it last week and said that was maybe the only week that KU fans were rooting for K-State when they were playing Missouri. This week might be the only time when K-State fans are going to root for KU because, it's like the old TV show, but you replace it with Texas. Everybody hates Texas. It's kind of the Big 12 motto right now, it feels like.
I mean, I was shocked to see Texas open as an 18.5-point favorite. That's a huge number for as good as KU's playing. But, Tim, we could welcome in 4 new schools into this conference. We knew Houston was kind of caught in between, and Cincinnati had a coaching change. But UCF and BYU kind of brought some confidence that they were going to come here and compete right away. They all lost their Big 12 openers, which maybe shouldn't be a surprise. Who do you think is going to shake out from the newcomers and actually be competitive?
I still think BYU is good. I mean, they took down Arkansas, which the state of that Arkansas team is in flux currently, but that's still a win on the road. It's solid. But if I had to pick one, it is probably UCF. I think that we don't know how last Saturday goes if they have John Reese Plumlee. I think he just adds another dimension to that offense. K-State, I think, still could have won that game, but I don't think it would have been as in hand as it was through most of the fourth quarter. But I think that they have enough Big 12 level athletes. They have top level transfers. They got guys from Alabama and all that good stuff all over that. Kobe Brown, right? The wide receiver. He's a stud. I think UCF is kind of the next one to once they figure out a couple little things, will be right at the top.
One more topic before I let you go. I know Brian Hanley wants to watch Monday Night Football desperately, although his Steelers won yesterday, so that's good.
Yes,
He's
sir.
He's in a good mood. The Dion show came to a crashing halt.
Emphasis on crashing.
Oregon's still scoring points as we speak. Look, the truth is they are an improved football team, Brian Hanley, but they're not all that yet. They just don't have it. They've got some flash players. He did a great job, particularly in that opener at TCU, using those guys, putting those guys in places to be successful. But now they got some film on them, and they got Oregon, and they got run out of the building. And now they're going to get USC, and they're going to get run out of the building. But still, much improved. But I'm kind of relieved that we got to tamp this down, this excitement down a little bit.
Well, the thing about it is there's two different aspects of it. Number one, I've been on several different podcasts, and I've been saying it for months. Colorado's got about 8 to 12 good football players.
Right. 8
to 12 good football players. Their top 44 is awful. It's just not good. The offensive line, the guys are tall, but they're not physical. So, their offensive line isn't good. I know a bunch of people gave Tom Luganville from ESPN a bunch of flack when he said they don't know how they're going to keep them upright. Well, they played against a team that actually had some athletes, and they couldn't keep them upright. So he wasn't wrong. He just wasn't wrong. Yeah. It just TCU didn't have the type of athletes to be able to exploit that. But it's just what you said. They got some film on them, and they were just outmatched everywhere. I mean, their DBs were just bigger and better than the Colorado receivers. We know on both sides of the line they were going to be better. They were just bigger and better. And I think people get caught up in they love the Dion story, and they love how he's doing it and changing how college football is done within the rules. And I love it. But at the same time, a lot of those same crazy people can't be realists and understand they don't have the horses yet to be able to do it. They just don't.
Well, we talked about the Lance Leipold and his turnaround at KU. He won 2 games in his first year at Kansas.
That's right.
Like for Dion to turn this around at Colorado, they don't have to go to a bowl game this year. If they win 3 or 4 games, like that's still a step in the right direction.
Well, here's the thing, and I don't mean to cut anybody off. At the beginning of this season, if you'd have said that Dion in Colorado was going to win 6 games, you'd have said he's the coach of the year. And we would have said that he deserved coach of the year from what they looked like and what their roster has been basically the past 5 years. It's been horrific. To get to 6 wins, he's the coach of the year. Now people are saying, well, if he gets to 6 wins, it's a failure.
Right.
I just don't understand that. That's insane to me.
And Glenn, you represent Fox here. They're going back for Big Noon Saturday again.
Every week. Pencil them in for every Saturday, not through the fall, but actually through March, just in case Prime takes over the basketball program.
Come on, man. What's going on?
It seems like they're going to be there every week, man. But I do want to say, Fitz, when you started introducing this, you said they're going to get blown out by USC this weekend. Coach Prime just texted me, said that it's personal, actually. So I do expect him to give like the Ryan Day rant that we saw at Lou Holtz. I expect you to get that from Prime if they win this game.
Well, I'm impressed that you've got Coach Prime on the texting machine. That's important.
Yep.
Tim, let's wrap it up with you. Let's say Kansas State is 7-1 going to Texas. I would imagine Texas is going to be very similar, if not unbeaten at that point. Is that the epicenter of college football on that weekend? Will we see Big Noon Saturday or the College Game Day crew there in Austin for that game?
I would think so. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some other pretty significant late season matchups. I don't know off the top of my head kind of what is happening that weekend, but it's going to be big. And the hype is going to be enormous, especially around here, and especially the hate is only going to build throughout the season. I mean, that is for everyone who's not Oklahoma and Texas. That's really what's powering teams through this.
Yeah. And I'm not sold on Oklahoma yet.
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely.
They played absolutely no one.
They got an easy schedule.
Yeah, they got
Iowa State schedule this weekend.
I think they're going to get blown out by Texas again.
Yeah.
I think Texas is going to line up and just run right over them again.
I would tend to agree with that. Well, that's it for this edition of the Insiders. We got to get Brian to Monday Night Football. Glenn's at work.
I got to show.
Glenn needs to go make TV magic, and Tim and I are just fat writers that don't have to work.
Yeah, you want to go grab some dinner somewhere?
Yeah, we do whatever we want.
You got to rub it in.
We appreciate you listening. Remember, K-State is off this week, but we'll still have coverage at GoPowerCat.com, including Chris Kleiman's press conference tomorrow from the Veneer Complex. We'll be there. So will Tim. Someone from Glen Station will be there. Brian won't be there because he lives in Frisco, Texas. We'll let him just stay there. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you listening.